The Black Ship. Chapter 4. The Echoes. The bridge of the Argosy was a quiet place now, the hum of the engines replaced by the steady pulse of uncertainty. The crew sat in tense silence, the shadow of the black ship stretching across their minds, just as it stretched across the viewport. It was closer now, much closer. No one had moved to alter their course. No one had suggested turning back. Captain Idris Hale stood before the main console, hands resting on the surface, staring at the black ship. He could feel the weight of its presence, a subtle pressure in the air. It wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a force. A presence that seemed to demand attention. Even as the crew worked diligently around him, scanning, rescanning, nothing seemed to dispel the unease that crept into their bones. "Captain," Eli's voice broke through the tension. "We've got a problem." Idris didn't look away from the screen. "What's wrong?" Eli's voice wavered. "The scans. Every time we run a new diagnostic, the results are inconsistent. It's like the data is being altered, like something's blocking our readings. Or it's just too advanced for our systems," Quinn added from her station, her tone flat but laced with something darker. Fear, perhaps. Idris shook his head slowly, feeling his instincts scream. "No. This is something else. It's deliberate. This ship, it's alive in some way." Quinn snorted. "Alive? That's not possible. Ships are machines, not like this one." Idris cut her off, his voice firm. "We don't know what we're dealing with, Quinn. We need to be careful." The silence stretched again, thick and oppressive. Eli was still staring at his console, his fingers hovering hesitantly over the controls. He could feel it too. The wrongness of it all. "On the scans again," Idris ordered. "This time, try isolating its core structure. Let's see what we can find." Eli nodded but didn't move immediately. It was almost as if the ship itself was holding them in place. After a long pause, Eli finally activated the sequence. The air seemed to still even further as the Argosy hovered in front of the black ship. The moment the scanner began its work, something strange happened. Every monitor blinked out, just for a moment, and then the readings came back. But they weren't the same. "Wait a minute," Eli muttered, adjusting his controls. "That's not possible." "What is it?" Idris demanded, stepping closer. "The structure of the ship, it's changing. The core is shifting. I can't tell where the material ends and the surrounding space begins." A wave of unease washed over the crew. Quinn's voice was tight. "It's not like any ship we've encountered. It's not built in a way that makes sense," Alan Peer answered. "Are you saying this is some kind of organic material?" Idris asked, a sense of dread gnawing at the edge of his thoughts. "Not exactly. More like it's feeding off our systems," Eli replied, his voice shaky. "Every scan we run just gets absorbed into it." Idris stared at the dark shape looming before them. It was still, so silent, yet it seemed to pulse with a quiet force, as if it were waiting for something. "Shut down all external scans," he ordered. "We're not getting anything useful. Keep an eye on our internal systems and don't let this thing get any closer." But even as he spoke, a cold shiver ran down his spine. Something was changing. A shift, subtle but undeniable. The very air felt thicker, as though the ship's dark presence was seeping into the Argosy itself. The echoes begin. The first crack in their calm came just after midnight. Idris had been in his quarters, trying to shake the gnawing unease that had settled over him ever since the ship had begun its unrelenting approach. He hadn't been able to sleep. a deep sense of foreboding pressing against his chest like a weight. There was no escaping it, not even in the quiet of his room. The comms buzzed. "Captain." It was Quinn's voice, and it was strained. Idris sat up, immediately alert. "What's happened?" "There's something. A signal. A message." Quinn's voice faltered. "I'm not sure how, but it's coming from the ship." "Explain," Idris said, already out of bed and reaching for his uniform. "It's a voice. Not like before. It's clearer now, and it's calling us." Idris froze. The hairs on his neck stood on end. "What do you mean, calling us?" He mumbled. "Nothing, Mike. The ship, somehow it's getting into our minds. We're hearing it, every one of us. It's like the ship itself is speaking to us. Is it just static? Is it another distortion?" "No, it's something else." Quinn's voice trembled. "We need to get out of here. I can feel it. The air, it's different." Ill-related deaths continued to happen, mostly in Brooklyn, but with workers in areas far reaches as Martin Ellis County, all of which were the most repelled by the work. Idris didn't wait for any more. He was already moving toward the bridge, every step weighed down by the same inexplicable dread. The message. Rue was already gathered when he arrived on the bridge. Quinn looked pale, her fingers clenched around the armrests of her seat. Eli, ever the technician, was glued to his console, trying to make sense of the ever-growing chaos of signals and data that flooded in and out of the ship's systems. "It's getting worse, Captain," Eli said, his voice strained. "The messages, they're becoming more, focused. It's as though the ship is learning us, understanding us." "What do you mean, learning us?" Idris asked, stepping closer. "It's like it knows who we are, what we are. It's tailoring the messages. I can almost hear my name." Eli trailed off, eyes wide. The room felt colder now. The screens flickered erratically as the message. An echo, a pulse, repeated again and again. The voice? It was clear now, growing louder, reverberating through the comms system, through the walls, through their bones. "Come closer." The words came through with horrifying clarity. "Join us?" It wasn't just a message anymore. It was a command. The crew could feel it, a deep resonance in the pit of their stomachs. Something was compelling them, and each passing second made the command grow stronger. Eli shuddered. "I can't stop it. It's in everything. The data is warping. It's in the ship's systems. It's infecting us." Idris's thoughts raced. What is it trying to do? Why us? The ship loomed outside, silent but ever present. And with every word, every echo, it became harder to ignore. Idris's voice was firm, but even he felt the pull. "We need to leave, now. Prepare the escape pods, we're getting out of here." But as he turned to face the others, a sudden vibration rumbled through the hull of the Argosy, a low hum that shook the very air. A flash of white light appeared, brief, intense, and then gone. Idris's heart stopped. Outside the viewport, the black ship was gone. In its place, a swirling mass of dark energy twisted, like a black hole, a vortex, pulling in everything around it. The Argosy was being drawn in.